Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about something very interesting, and most importantly, something that's very important to know as a product designer in India. Now, this is going to be quite a bit of a long video, and I'm going to be covering so much more. As you can see in my Figma, I've already prepared everything. We're going to get into so much detail. I'm going to explain so many topics. I even have an agenda slide where I'm going to talk about the things I'm going to talk about in this video. Now, before I get started, I just want to mention that if you haven't checked out my mega product design course for beginners, make sure to check it out. Link will be down below in the description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Okay, now, with that being said, let's get some context. Okay, so this is a report that is done annually by the design team at Zeta, and they send out a survey and get responses from designers in India to give an overall understanding. Now, they started doing this last year in 2021, and this time they've released another one, which is in 2022. It's been a while since they released it. This was sometime in August 9th, so it's been a while, and they're also going to do it next year as well. Okay, so the first thing on the list is I'm going to actually bust a lot of myths and clarify a lot of misunderstandings that people have regarding how the industry works. And I'm going to do this throughout the entire video at different parts. The next thing is I'm going to reveal my salary structure as well, based on my 4 years of experience as working as a product designer. Obviously, I'm not going to be revealing the actual salary numbers, but I'm going to give you values in terms of percentages to get a better idea. And obviously, this is not in the order. I'm just mentioning points over here, and I'm going to cover this in different orders. Then we have the types of companies that are there. Then I'm going to talk about the role hierarchy across different companies. What are the different names of the roles that many companies have? I'm going to compare the 2021 figures and 2022 figures from the report. I'm going to give you a very basic introduction to what ESOPs are. I'm also going to help you understand how much you need to ask for depending on who you are, which position you're in, how many years of experience you have, and things like that. And trust me, this is going to be very interesting when I talk about this part. Then I'm going to tell you how to judge a company and make a decision so that you'll know how much to ask for. And I'll also tell you which sort of companies you should apply to. And I'm also going to give very real life examples of mine and basically life stories of mine and my experiences. And finally, I'll end the video with personal suggestions on advice on how to navigate the design industry. Some of these are personal suggestions. You're more than welcome to not follow them if you feel you don't believe in them. That's totally okay. But if you are really interested in knowing how I did it and what I feel is the right approach to become a successful designer going through the industry, then you can definitely check that out. Okay, up next. So what I've done here is I've broken these down into typically 3 types of companies. Okay, so one, we have product-based companies, then we have service-based companies, and then we have design agencies. Now, example of product-based is Swiggy, Uber, Flipkart. Now, what a product-based company means is that this company owns the product and it is their product. So designers in Swiggy are going to be designing the Swiggy app. Designers in Uber are going to be designing the Uber app, and designers in Flipkart are going to be designing the Flipkart app, right? So the owners of the product is a product-based company. Coming to a service-based company, which is basically companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Oracle, right? These companies provide design as a service, which means that they don't own the product. They have clients who own the product. For example, airlines, for example, banks, for example, hospitals. These service-based companies design the products for somebody else. And these are service-based companies. Now, this might be very surprising, but it's very true. And I'm going to show you a real example right now. And as you can see, Deloitte is a finance company, as we all know. It's into financing, it's into accounting, it's into taxation. But they also have a subsidiary. I don't know how this structure works, but they have something called as Deloitte Digital, which provides digital services. Okay. Then you have another company called as Design It. And as you can see, Design It is a Wipro company, right? So Wipro has its own standalone service-based company to provide design and technology related services to, like I mentioned, banks, hotels, airlines, hospitals, and places like that. And finally, you have design agencies. These aren't very big companies, but they also provide services to other companies. For example, Lollipop is a very popular one that's going across the world. And then Obvious is another company as well. Now, what do these stars mean? Now, product-based companies have 4 stars, the other is 2 stars, and this is 1 star. Now, this isn't a rating. This basically means product-based companies tend to give the highest salaries compared to service-based companies, and design agencies give the least. Now, the reason service-based companies give more than design agencies is because service-based company, of course, have multiple business verticals. They have thousands and thousands of employees, and they're huge companies. As you can see, like Wipro, Oracle, TCS, these are massive multinational corporations, right? So they have a lot of money. But design agencies are actually going to be very small, and they have very less employees, and they don't generate that much revenue because it's service-based. But product-based definitely give the highest amount of salaries. So my recommendation is that when you're starting out, always target product-based companies. Do not go for service-based or design agencies because it can drastically slow down your career path. And there are so many other reasons for that, why service-based companies and design agencies don't pay well, and you don't see a lot of successful designers from there. Of course, there are exceptions, but generally you see successful designers only in product-based companies. Okay. So my suggestion is to go for only product-based companies. Product-based companies. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and break that down into a little bit more in types of product companies that you want to target. Now, I've put them into 4 categories so that it's very easy for me to explain. So you have small startups with a poor or no design teams at all. Then you have startups with good design teams, for example, FamPay and Cred. These are new fintech companies that have good design teams, which means they have good leaders, good head of designs, good people running the company. Then you have established startups and companies. These are startups that have been there for a while. They have a very large team. They have a very large user base. For example, Flipkart, Swiggy, Unacademy, Razorpay. These are very big startups and companies. I don't know if they're still considered startups. And then finally, you have like super large companies, which could be Microsoft, Google, Uber, Make My Trip, Amazon, whatever it is, right? So these are typically 4 types of product companies. Now, this has purple color. These two have different colors, and these two have the same colors. And the reason I've done that is also because that these 2 companies tend to pay the highest salaries for a particular role compared to these 2 companies. Now, small startups with poor or no design team pay quite less, to be very honest, because number one, they don't have a lot of money. They don't have a big product. They don't have a lot of users. They're not generating a lot of revenue, and they may not even be funded. Okay. Small startups pay a little bit more, or I would say they pay decently pretty well, like companies like FamPay and Cred. Then you have established startups which pay even more. But sometimes these 2 overlap depending on the company. These 2 might fall under the same range. So don't make a 1-to-1 correlation. And then of course you have large companies which definitely pay quite a lot. Now, when I ran the survey, I got a few questions and I've noted those down. Okay. I'm a designer with 3 years of experience. How much should I be earning? Okay. I have 1 year of experience with 7 lakh salary. Is that low? How do I know if I'm being underpaid? How can we make sure that as a designer, we are paid right? Now, of all the questions that I got, I've only shortlisted these questions mainly because these questions are actually the wrong questions to be asking. And now it's not that it's a bad thing you're asking these questions. It's definitely important to ask these questions so you understand how the industry works. Question to ask is as well. So let's take an example of dressing sense. Okay. Now we all wear clothes. We have all been to various occasions. And let's take 4 examples, right? You're dressing up because you want to go to your friend's house. You're dressing up because you want to go to a housewarming ceremony. You're dressing up because you want to go to a fancy party at a 5-star hotel. And you're dressing up because you're going to your cousin's wedding, right? Now, all of us are capable of buying clothes, which are the most simplest to the most fanciest, right? So if you go ahead and ask a question which says, I have so many types of clothes. Sorry, that's a typo. I have so many types of clothes. What should I wear? Now, if you just ask this question doesn't really make sense. Very similar to these questions. And the reason being that what you have to wear depends on where you're going. Okay. Now, for example, when you go to your cousin's wedding, you're going to be wearing a super fancy dress. You're going to be wearing a very expensive dress. You're going to be wearing something that looks amazing on you. When you're going to your friend's house, you might just wear shirt and jeans and you're done. You might not even comb your hair or do makeup or whatever, right? So if you go to your friend's house and you're overdressed wearing a super amazing, good looking dress, you're going to look like a fool, right? And if you go to your cousin's wedding in jeans and a normal shirt, you're going to look like a fool again as well, right? So the point here I'm trying to make is that these questions don't make sense because these questions depends on which companies you're targeting and which companies you're working in. Depending on that, you're going to have to ask a question. So the right way to ask the question would be, how much salary can I expect as an entry-level designer in a mid-level company, right? So a mid-level company would be small startups or established startups. And of course, some categories might jump between these categories. But if you really want to ask a right question, the question is, how much salary can I expect as an entry-level designer or a senior designer or a lead designer in a mid-level company, right? Or an established company or a large company or a very small startup with no design team. Because the thing is, for example, if you say you have 1 year of experience with 7 lakh salary, right? If you work in a company like Microsoft, it's ridiculously low. And if you work in a company which has no design team, a very small startup, then it's actually a pretty good salary, right? So the question is that these questions are wrong and have to be framed in the right way. Now, I'm going to get into the numbers a little bit later. We're going to look at the report and all the numbers a little bit later. But it's important to understand where I'm coming from. I'm trying to build a story so that everything becomes so contextual. Now, I got this question as well, which I found very interesting. And I have a graph that I'm going to show you over here and explain what that means. The question is, I know a fresher who is getting 15 lakhs per annum. What differentiates this person from the rest? Now, this is a very good question because there are a lot of levels to answering this question. Now, 15 lakhs per annum for a fresher is actually an excellent salary, right? Can you get less than this? Yes. Can you get more than this? Yes. Okay. But the question you need to ask is, this 15 lakhs per annum is from which company? Is it from a small startup? Is it from a startup with a good team? Is it from an established startup? Or is it from a large company? Right? Now I'm going to give you a scenario. Now let's say this person who was earning 15 lakhs was in a large company, right? This might mean that this person is actually talented, has a lot of skills, probably has done a few internships in the past, and is a pretty decent designer. But if that person is earning 15 lakhs per annum and is working in a small startup with a poor or no design team, then that does not guarantee that he's a smarter designer. Maybe he or she got lucky. Maybe this company didn't find anybody else capable enough, so they've hired this person of the only people who applied there. So it can mean a lot of things. And without knowing where this company works, it's going to be very hard to judge. Because if you fall in any of these categories as well, and you're earning 15 lakhs per annum, that means you're a pretty good designer. And if you're working in an established or a large company, then you're actually an amazing designer, right? And what happens usually is that a lot of people aim for these 3 companies, but they settle for this because they're not good enough. And let me tell you what's going to happen. I have a graph over here and I have 3 types of, lines over here. The x-axis is the time, which is over a period of time, which basically means number of years of experience. And how much money you earn is the y-axis. Okay. Now, if you look at the green, right, the green starts off slow. Okay. And over a period of time, it just shoots up so high. And if you can picture this graph being even bigger, you can see that this green goes super high. Okay. Now, the second option is this blue one, which is a little bit of a more of a higher salary. And that's also doing pretty well. Okay. It's a little bit of a slow growth in the beginning, and then it shoots up after a certain point in time. And there's another one, which is the red one, where the salary is so high in the beginning itself. And then after some more time, it becomes even higher. And then it just flattens out. Now, I personally, and I'm fortunate enough to say this, that I have been on the green graph because I started with a low salary. And then as I progressed through my career, I was able to get a very high salary because I was able to get into really good companies. I learned amazing design skills, and now my salary is quite on the higher end. But I've also seen a lot of people who follow this path where they get into companies which aren't really great, and somehow they get lucky and they get paid a lot. And because they're not working in good companies. So let's take, for example, this one, right? If you're earning 15 lakhs per annum in a small company with no design team, you're pretty much not going to learn. And as time progresses, you're not going to be learning from a lot of people. You're not going to be learning good design skills. And so for you to get a higher salary is going to be very hard because you're not going to be able to jump from a company like this to a company like this over a long period of time, right? Let's say you worked in this company for a year and then you made a shift to a better company. You're set. But if you work in this company itself for 3 years, it's really hard for you to get a higher salary because you can't get into these teams because these companies require amazing skills for a person who has 3 years of experience. Okay. Now, if you didn't understand what I just said, go back and watch the video and listen to me carefully. So to answer this question, if you're a designer with 3 years of experience, how much you should be earning, it totally depends on where you're working or where you're targeting to reach. Okay. Now let's move forward. Now I'm going to talk about my salary growth. Of course, I'm not going to be revealing any numbers, so please don't get excited about anything. I'm just going to give you examples and rough figures because I can't disclose my salary. Now, I started my career with this company, which was a small startup with poor or no design team. And that is this one. Okay. So I actually started my career from there. Okay. It was a company called as Travelo and it had around 8 employees when I joined. I was the only designer on the team and I stayed there for 4 months and I was earning a salary of X. And after staying there for 4 months, I realized that I wasn't earning anything. So then I moved to a bigger company and it was a small startup with a good design team and that was Unacademy. And this was way back in 2018. And Unacademy is such a huge company now, but back then we were just like 3 or 4 designers and the company was very small. Now Unacademy has like 15, 20 designers and they earn a really good salary. Now, because I just had 4 months of experience, I just ended up getting the same salary. I got a little bit more than what I was earning, like a tiny little bit more. And I worked there for 1.5 years. And of course, after working there for 1 year, I got my hike of a certain percentage. Obviously, I cannot reveal that as well. And then after working there for 1.5 years, I went to one of the largest companies. I got an opportunity to work in one of the largest companies and I worked there for 2 years. And my salary was 2.5x. Now, to explain what this means in actual terms, I'm going to give you an example. All right. And keyword here is example. This is not my real number. I'm just going to give you an example. So if I had started with 5 lakh, okay. Actually, I'm going to make this, let's say I'm going to make this 4.5 lakh. Okay. When I joined Unacademy, let's assume I was getting 5 lakh. Again, specifying that this is an example and not the actual figure. When I went to the large company, I got a 2.5x jump. So from 5 lakh, it would have become 12.5 lakh. Okay. Now, if this doesn't make a lot of sense, let's go even further. Okay. So let's say here, I'm going to make this 8 lakh actually. Let's say I was earning 8 lakh in this company with the poor design team. And then when I joined Unacademy, I would have gotten 10 lakh. And then when I joined the other company, I jumped from 10 to 25 lakh, right? And now all of this is, if you look at the number of years of experience, when I joined this company, I had just 2 years of experience. So when you ask this question, I'm a designer. Let's say we make this 2 years of experience. I'm a designer with 2 years of experience. How much should I be earning? Now, if I was still at Unacademy, I would have gotten very less salary, to be very honest. Right? Now, let's look over here. So if I was at Unacademy, I would have gotten something like, 15 lakhs per annum. But because I jumped, I got 25 lakhs. So what that means is the important question here, again, I'm repeating myself, is that how much salary should I expect as an entry-level designer in a mid-level company? Then you'll be able to know how much you should be getting. Okay. So this is basically my salary growth. Okay. Now, let's get into a little bit of other details and I'm going to talk about the roles and names and give you a little bit more context as we get in closer to understanding the numbers. Now, every company has its sort of own sets of names that it gives roles and sometimes it's very confusing for me, but this is how it is and I'm giving you like an overall idea. Now, some companies call product designers as UX designers. For example, Zeta itself calls designers as UX designers, even though they end up doing actual UI design work, product design work, interaction design, visual design, UI design. Actually, they don't do visual design. They have separate visual designers. But the designers in Zeta are product designers, but for some reason they're called UX designers. I'm not really sure what it is, but anyway, that's how it is. Then you have UX designers in Google. You also have product designers in Google as well. So I'm just going to add Google over here. So in Google, you have UX designers and then you have product designers and then you have interaction designers. Now, interaction designers and product designers are pretty much the same in Google. I guess it depends based on the region, country, and the team. But both of these pretty much do the same thing. But in companies like Apple and Uber, they are called product designers. And Apple also has a separate team called as the human interface designers, who are also product designers, but they work on the OS. They work on iOS, they work on watchOS, macOS, tvOS, they work on the platforms. And the product designers here at Apple work on the Apple apps, let's say like the App Store, let's say like Apple Music, let's say the Apple TV app and things like that, right? So ideally, these are the role names that you can probably see in the design space out there. Now I'm not covering specific UI designers because I don't really think you should work as a UI designer because that makes absolutely no sense. And you can work as a UX designer, but startups don't really hire UX designers. They always hire product designers. UX designers are sort of dedicated to very large companies. Okay. Now, since we're talking about freshers, I'm going to be talking only about product designers. Now, we also have visual designers. Now, these are not product designers. Visual designers are more graphic designers. So they have a very different skill set altogether. They use a lot of Photoshop, Illustrator, they do graphics and stuff like that. But I just wanted to mention that out for people who have confusions. Okay. Now, there's another question over here, which I got, which was, what is the difference in pay between a product designer and UX designer? Now, the thing is, there is no difference between UI, UX design and product design. Both of them are the same thing. If a company has UI UX design in their job application, it's a product design role. If a company has product design in their job application, it's a UI UX design role. So the thing is, there isn't any difference between product designer and UI UX designer. The only difference is in between the level or the stage of the company, the particular company is in. And when I say stage, I'm talking about these 4 types of product companies. Okay. Great. Now, that's another question I wanted to answer. Now, let's talk a little bit of role hierarchy in companies. Now, there are typically 2 types. There can be more types as well, but this is what I've commonly seen in the world, not just India. I've seen this in the entire world. And if it's a very small or a simple company, a simple startup and things like that, you're going to have something like product designer 1, product designer 2. You're going to have a senior product designer. Then you will have a lead product designer, and then you'll have head of design. Right? Now, some of these can be skipped. So for example, you might not have product designer 2, you might just have product designer 1, and then senior, and then lead, and then head of design, right? That might be the structure in the company. Now, there's another one which gets a little bit more, complicated. For example, you have associate product designer, which is basically a junior product designer, right? You're not an intern as such, but you're a junior product designer, but nobody calls them as juniors. Then you have product designer 1, you have product designer 2, then you have a senior, then you have a lead, then you have a staff product designer. So basically, a staff product designer is someone who is available to work on multiple projects in a very large company. For example, companies like Airbnb and Spotify, they have staff product designers. Even Twitter has a staff product designer. I think even Meta has this role as staff product designer, right? So it's quite a bit of a high role. I think maybe this comes before lead. I'm not very sure, but doesn't really matter. Then you have a design manager, and then you have a VP of design or director of design and stuff like that. Like, this is something you would see in, very established startups or very large companies. Okay. Now, there's another very important thing that I want to talk about. Now here, I've just taken this over here, and you can see something called IC over here. You also see M1 over here. Now, what is this IC and what is this M? Now, these are typically not conveyed to the candidates, and this is some sort of an internal thing that the company has. Now, obviously, it's your right to know this, and once you join the company, you will be assigned this level that I've mentioned over here, which is basically IC 1, 2.2, 3, 3.2, whatever it is. But let me explain what these actually are. Now, IC stands for individual contributor, and what that basically means, you're more on the execution side of things. You're mainly creating things, right? You're not a manager, because the moment you become a design manager, you get into the zone of managing things, making strategic decisions, thinking about how you can help designers, how you can build a good culture and stuff like that. You don't get into the product level decisions, right? Now, if that's too complicated, it doesn't really matter. So an associate product designer is usually IC1 if they have that level, and a product designer 1 is IC2. You also have IC 2.2. Now, the reason companies have this is because every company has a salary band for each role. Okay, so let's take an example over here. So let's say for an associate product designer, let's take a random example. Let's say they have a salary band of 7 to 10 lakhs per annum. Okay, this is their salary band. So now, when you apply to this company as an associate product designer, this HR is going to ask you, what salary are you expecting? And depending on the salary you ask, they will check if the salary you're asking is within this band that is there, right? So if you are actually good, the HR can actually push for you to get 10 lakhs per annum. Now, can you get 11 lakhs per annum? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. It depends on the company. It depends on how strict the HR policies are. The same thing over here. Let's say you're a product designer 1. Let's say you get from 11 lakhs per annum to 15 lakhs per annum, right? Obviously, IC 2.2 is a higher role than IC 2. Now, which means that let's say you completed 1 year of experience and now you're qualified enough to work as product designer 1. I'm just taking this as an example. You will start off with IC 2, right? But if you actually did an amazing job, like you became really good and the past 1 year you worked as an associate product designer and you did a phenomenal job, they might jump you to IC 2.2, okay? You'll still be called product designer 1, but you'll be probably earning 15 lakhs per annum. So if you're going to a company and you're leaving your existing company and you're moving to another company and you have product and you're applying for product design 1 position, depending on how good you are and depending on how much salary you want, the company will decide whether they want to give you IC2 or IC 2.2, and that will determine your salary. So when you're negotiating, HRs are looking at this band that's there. And depending on how good you are, depending on how you do your interviews, your assignments, and feedback that you get from the recruiters, they're going to determine where you're going to sit. So there is some ability for you to negotiate, but you can't go more than this band typically. Of course, there can be exceptions. Sometimes company might offer you a little bit more and make exceptions for you if you're actually that good. So that's basically how it works. Okay. Now, once you become, let's say, a staff product designer, and you still want to get into the execution round, you can then become a head of design if you want. And that makes you IC7. And of course, this is just an example, right? This totally depends on the company structure. Don't, exactly make a one-to-one correlation of what I'm saying. But if you feel like you want to get into the manager round, you're going to jump from IC6, then you're going to become M1. And probably VP of design is probably like, M3 or something. I don't know, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, right? So basically, this is how it works. Okay, let's move forward. Now, the biggest question is what determines the salary that you get? What determines how much you should negotiate? And there are 3 things. 1 is the stage of the company. 2 is the role you're applying to. And number 3 is not the years of experience. This is the biggest misconception that exists in the world out there. And I'm going to give you real proofs right now. Why years of experience is not to be considered for salary. Just because you have 5 years doesn't mean you deserve a very high salary. It depends on the stage of the company and it depends on the role you're applying to. And I'm going to give you an example of why years of experience is not a factor for salary. So what I've gone to LinkedIn and I've just taken screenshots of some people who have worked in really big companies, and let's actually look their progression. So this person started in 2013 as an art director, all right, and then he still worked there as an art director, and then he moved to Uber as a staff product designer. Now, staff product designer is quite a big jump. You're quite high of a product designer in level, and there he worked for 3 years. Then he worked at some startup for 1 to 4 years of experience. And then he went to Apple, and from staff, he just became a human interface designer. So that was a big dip in the role, right? So basically what happened is this person was over here, but then fell somewhere over here, product designer 1 or product designer 2, right? Now you're falling down the role, but that doesn't mean your salary falls down. Your salary definitely gets improved because, for example, okay, I'm just going to take a rough example over here. And I'm going to copy this text over here. Okay. If in Uber, let's say this person was, for example, earning 30 lakh per annum, just taking a rough example. Okay. When you go to Apple, you fall down in the role and let's say you get probably 45 lakh per annum in Apple. Okay. So the reason this person is getting 45 lakh is not because of his years of experience. It's because of where he works and the level he works in. Now, if this person joined as a senior human interface designer, then he would probably getting 55. I'm just taking examples here again. Okay. Let's go and take a look at another one. This one is pretty crazy. Now look at this. This person has worked at pretty much 3 FANG companies, which is ridiculous. Facebook, Netflix, and Apple. And you can see that this person has 5 years of experience over here, 2 years of experience over here, and this is just 2 months of experience over here, right? So with 7 years of experience, this person is working at Apple and has the same level, but definitely has more salary than what Netflix and Facebook was providing, right? So if you tell that, hey, I have 5 years of experience, how much should I earn? And if you demand a salary that Apple gives you, then you're not going to get that salary, right? Let's say for 5 years of experience and this Apple was paying 55 lakhs per annum, right? So if you are a designer in India, and of course I'm assuming this 55 lakh is for the Indian salary in Apple, and you work at a small startup and you have 5 years of experience and you go running around asking for 55 lakh just because Apple pays 55 lakhs, you're not going to get 55 lakhs, right? Because what is important is not how many years of experience you have. It is basically the role you're applying to and the stage of the company that matters. So when you are demanding salary, always consider the stage of the company and the role and not how many years of experience you have. That does not matter for salary. Okay. I have another example over here. Check out this. This person was an advisory designer, then a senior designer, and then a design principal. All right. Principal is quite big. So principal somewhere falls over here in the VP of design, design manager, director of design falls sort of over there. And then fell down to senior interaction designer in Google. And that's obviously going to happen because IBM is not as big as Google. IBM is a service-based company. As I mentioned before, service-based companies don't pay higher salary, but Google is a product-based company. And so definitely, even though they fell down in the role, they're still going to get higher salary than what IBM is. And I've also heard that Google actually pays you quite less compared to all the other FANG and top companies in the world. I don't have proof of it, but that's what I've heard. So if people are still willing to take a salary cut from IBM, in this case, for example, but you get to work at Google. You get to have a FANG company on your resume, which is ridiculously awesome, right? And look at this. This person has 2 years of experience, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and putting this together, 7 and a half years of experience, right? This person has 7.5 years of experience and is a senior interaction designer at Google. Right? In India, if you work at a normal startup and you have 7 years of experience, you can probably work as the head of design over there, right? So again, coming back to my main thing, what determines the salary you get is the stage of the company and the role you're applying to and not your years of experience. Okay, let's go forward. Now let's get into some technical number related stuff. Let's talk about the components of salary. So basically you have 3 basic things. You get other stuff as well, like benefits and variable pay and things like that, but I'm not covering all of those. I'm just covering the 3 main things. You're going to get your basic pay, you're going to get a bonus, and you're going to get ESOPs as well. Now bonus and ESOPs are optional, which means the company chooses if it wants to give it to you or not. You can obviously ask for it. There's nothing wrong in asking for it, and it's your right to ask for it, but not all companies give bonus and ESOPs. Let's quickly understand what are the types of bonus and ESOPs. I'm going to get into ESOPs next, but coming to the type of bonus, you have 4 types of bonus. You have a joining bonus, and this is when you join the company, and sometimes this could be like a relocation bonus. Let's say you're moving from one city or moving from a country to a country, you get a relocation bonus, which is like a joining bonus. Then you have a performance bonus, which is annually or semi-annually, depends upon the company. This depends on how good you performed. And then you get a one-time bonus, and usually this is on completion of your probation period. Usually it is 3 months or 6 months in foreign countries. It totally depends on that. And if you work there for a good period of time and you finish that period, you get like a one-time bonus, and you also get other bonuses as well. Now, these bonuses are usually just 10 to 20% of your base salary. It's not really a lot. It's just a one-time thing. It happens only that 1 year or on completion of that one event, right? Let's say even if you complete 5 years of working at a company, you get a one-time bonus. Okay. Now, this is very less because it's just 10 to 20% of your base pay. Maybe I just mentioned that 20% of base pay. Okay. Let's talk about ESOPs a little bit more. Okay. Now, Before, let me just hide all of this because I don't want you guys to get distracted. Now, if you want to learn more about ESOPs, there's so much documentation. You can read articles, you can watch YouTube videos and learn about it. But ESOPs is basically stock options, and I'm going to tell you how that impacts your salary. And I'm going to take an example. Okay, so actually I'm going to hide these two, and I'm going to focus on this. Now, let's say this is a situation that you are in. In your year one, you're earning 12 lakhs, and this 12 lakhs is comprised of two things. Okay. And I'm taking very simple examples that this ESOPs thing can make things so complicated in your salary structure, but I'm taking a very simple example here. Let's say you're earning a base pay of 10 lakhs. You get ESOPs worth 2 lakhs. So when you get ESOPs, you don't get shares. You don't get compensation in terms of number of shares. You get it in terms of value of the shares. So they're going to say, we're going to give you shares worth a certain amount. They're not going to say, we're going to give you 5,000 shares. They're going to say, we're going to give you shares worth this amount. So in this case, this person is getting shares worth 2 lakh rupees. And let's say that the value per share at that particular point in time of the company is 200 rupees per share. So in the end, you're going to get 1,000 shares. Now this again, you don't actually get the shares, you get an option to buy the shares at a future date. And now that's again a very complex concept, so we'll just ignore that. Okay. And now let's say you go to year 2 and you stay in the same company. Of course, if ESOPs have to make sense, you have to stay in the same company for a long period of time, or else ESOPs are valueless. Let's say the total becomes from 12 lakh to 16 lakh because maybe you got an increment. Let's say you got 20% increment and your salary became 12 lakh. And now the ESOPs, you still have the same 1,000 shares, but because the company got some funding, all right, or the company, let's say, became profitable, or there's something, the company just grew, the value of the share became 400 rupees. And so now your ESOPs are worth 4 lakh. So what you had worth was 2 lakh. You got free 2 more lakhs because the value of the share doubled from 200 to 400. Okay. Let's take another scenario where it's year 5. Okay. And now it's 45 lakhs. Okay. So your base pay is now 25 lakhs. Okay. Because let's say it jumped from 12 lakh to 25 lakh. Or actually, let me just make this 20. Because that makes more reasonable sense, given I'm just doing a 20% increment. Actually, it comes up to 21 lakhs if I go ahead and do the math for 20% raise every year. And let's say now here your ESOP, so this is going to be 41. So let's say your ESOPs are worth 20 lakhs because now let's say you got more investment. Okay, now the value per share after 5 years is 2,000 rupees per share. Okay, which makes your value 20 lakhs. Right? So this is the power of ESOPs. The more successful the company becomes, the more money you end up making. Because look at the difference over here. Your base pay was 10 and ESOPs were 2. But here your base pay and ESOPs is now pretty much at the same level, which is actually very surprising. Now, if you want to be in a situation like this, the only way to do is to work in companies like this. Small startups with a good design team, which is with really good funding, established companies and startups, and large companies. If you work at small companies with poor or no design team, you are going to probably be in this situation, or maybe in this situation where you actually have like a low salary and you just get stagnant for the rest of your life, right? So it's very important to build skills and go work in better companies with better designers. Okay. So now that covers ESOPs. Okay. Next. Now we can get into the survey and I'm going to talk about a few more interesting stuff. Now here we're actually going to get into the numbers and give you guys an idea of how much you can ask, a rough figure. Okay. Now the survey that Zeta made basically considered only base pay and bonus, and ESOPs were basically not included. Okay. Now I'm going to hide the 2021 version of this and I'm going to look at the 2022 version because I'm going to try to prove a point. Now, if you look at the salary for somebody who has 0 to 2 years of experience, let's look at the roles that you will come in. You're pretty much going to work as an associate product designer or a product designer 1, depending on the company and, what stage they have, right? So with 2 years of experience. Now, what you see over here is that the median average salary is 8.5 lakh. And the highest salary for a person with 2 years of experience is 35 lakhs per annum. Now, looking at this, you might think that just because you have 2 years of experience, you deserve 35 lakhs, and that is absolutely incorrect. Okay? Because if you remember what I spoke about before over here, your salary, if I come to that point, your salary is dependent on the stage of the company and the role you're applying to. Now, in this case, the role is pretty much going to be the same. It's the stage of the company that matters. So if you think that you can go to a company which has no design team or a very poor design team and ask for 35 lakhs per annum, they're probably going to laugh at you. But if you go to a large company and demand 35 lakhs per annum, they're going to consider. Now, of course, if you have to get into this large company, you need to have a very good design skills and you need to demonstrate that. And then you can actually demand for 35 lakhs per annum. Now, the reason this information is quite misleading is because it doesn't tell how many people are actually getting 35 lakhs per annum. Okay. And if you see, the average is actually 8.5 lakhs, which is at the lower end, which means companies are actually paying 8.5 lakh. All right. Now, here is where I'm going to tell you, depending on the type of company, how much you could ask. I'm going to give you a framework now. So let's go ahead and I'm going to prepare the framework. I should have actually done it before, but we're going to do it now. Okay. So framework. Okay. Or actually, let me go ahead and copy this and we're going to do this together. What was that? Okay. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to delete this and paste it over here. And I'm going to call this framework. Okay. Or maybe I'm going to put this down so we can probably see it better. Now, since the average is 8.5 lakhs, right? Now, if you're getting into a company like this, okay, let's say a small startup with a good design team or an established startup, you can probably ask something on the higher side of 8.5 lakh. Okay. So for example, that could be, let's say 9 to 10 lakh per annum. Okay. And these companies could be somewhere in the range of, let's say 9 to 15 lakhs per annum. Okay, I'm giving it like a rough figure. Okay. If you come over here, you typically have to ask on the lower end because they will not be willing to give you high salary. Now, again, I'm not saying that these companies may not have the money to pay you this. They can still pay you 10 lakhs. They can still pay you 12 lakhs. They can still pay you 15 lakhs, right? But the chances are low. So what I'm saying is you can give it a shot, but don't expect that you will actually get what you deserve, right? So small startups, I would probably say somewhere in the range of, 6 to 8.5 lakhs per annum. This is what they might offer you. I'm not saying that they'll cap it at 8.5. You might get 8.5. What I'm doing is I'm giving you ranges for you to ask and take a call, right? Now, even large companies over here, obviously, these will pay you a lot more. And this person who's actually getting 35 lakhs, and if we even take 5 lakhs as bonus, the salary is around 30 lakhs. This might be a person who's working in a very large company like Microsoft or Adobe as well, and probably is from design school, right? And how many people are actually over here? It's very less because the average is towards the bottom end of the graph. Okay. So I'm giving you ranges over here, and this is how you actually determine how much you think you should ask or negotiate. Because if you go to the small startup and you say, hey, I want 15 lakhs per annum, there's a very, very small chance that you will actually get 15 lakhs per annum. Right? So depending on the stage of the company, figure out how much you want to ask. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the 2021 figure, right? This is 2021. And so this has 444 members from 2022. And this is 227 members from 2021. The thing is, it doesn't really matter because this is still a large number. And if you see over here, the median is 7 lakhs. And of course, there's been an increase from 7 to 8.5, which is good. The only reason is because there are more number of companies and there are more number of startups. And so there's higher demand. And of course, there are more number of designers getting into the industry. So it makes sense to increase the salaries as well. But you can also see here that majority of the people here are in this, 2 lakh per annum to 9 lakh range. Right? And all the people who are over here is a very small percentage of very talented designers working in established companies and startups, which is the third category. Right? You can see that there are even companies, and of course, Companies that offer definitely less than 5 lakh and stuff are really bad companies. You should never probably work there, and they're probably design agencies or service-based companies. So probably you can start your career with there if you don't really have an option, but don't stay there for a very long period of time. That can be a totally different discussion or a podcast episode altogether. But you can see the difference over here. And number of people who are actually getting 35 is like so less. Even somebody who got 20 is so less. Maybe these are, 3-4 people who just graduated from design school and were able to get 35 lakhs per annum because they were actually pretty good, right? So that's that. So hope that makes a lot of sense. Now, the other question is, how do you judge a company, right? How do you judge what's a small company, what's a medium company, what's an established company, right? Now, we obviously know large companies and established companies because they already have an excellent brand name. But what about smaller startups? How do you define if it's a good place to work or not? Now, there are a couple of questions you want to ask during interviews, or you can do research on your own, right? I'm going to hide these one for now, and we're going to go through them one by one. So, who is there in the leadership? Have they built successful products in the past? Who is the CEO? Who is the design lead? Where has the design lead worked before? You need to ask all these questions. Now, if you don't have answers to these questions, go online to LinkedIn, do some research, or even just ask your friends. Ask your senior designers, ask people who you know, and get feedback from them and get information, insights from them. You're going to learn quite a lot from that, right? Now, there's a big misconception here is that if somebody, in the leadership is from Harvard or a very big university or from IIT, people assume that the company is good. Right. And I know a lot of companies which are started by IITians and they have no idea how to run the company, because IIT or Harvard or whatever fancy MBA degree teaches you business, but it doesn't teach you how to hire teams. It doesn't teach you how to get funding. It doesn't teach you how to run a successful company. It teaches you how you can be a skillful person. Right? So just because somebody is from Harvard or IIT doesn't mean that the company is going to be a successful company. It totally may be a successful company. I'm not denying that, but don't take that for granted. Okay. The next question is, are they funded? If they are funded, it's definitely a good sign. Now, funded also doesn't mean the company is going to become successful and profitable. The company can fail as well, but it's a good sign and you can take a step forward. Do they have a successful product? And when I say successful product, how many people are using the product? How many people know about the product? Do you feel that this product actually makes sense and people are going to use it, right? Do you actually see this product becoming successful and beating competitors in the future, right? Because today, if there is another edtech company, it's going to fail miserably because there are already companies like Byju's and Unacademy ruling. If there's a food tech company, it's going to get destroyed because Zomato and Swiggy already rule the food tech space, which is why Ola Foods did not work. Amazon Foods did not work. Food Panda didn't work. All these startups didn't work, even though they were run by successful people and companies, was because Swiggy and Zomato were already dominating the market. Next question, what is their roadmap? Do they want to launch new products? Do they want to launch new features? What is their strategy to expand? Sorry, it's typo here. CRATEGY. What is their strategy to expand? It's important to ask these questions in the interview so you get an idea, right? And depending on this, you'll be able to judge which stage the company is in, right? And how good are the hikes in the company, right? How much do they value designers? What are the salary bands? Now, I've heard two types of companies, right? One company, they give very big base pay and less increment, and the other companies which give less base pay and very high increment, right? So depending on what you want, you can take a call as well. Okay, so this is how you judge a company. Now let's look at the other two. So this is 2.5 years of experience, and probably the roles that you can go for is product designer 2, senior product designer, lead product designer. And again, this totally depends on the company. If you work at a very big company, then you can probably become a senior designer with 5 years of experience. If you work at a smaller company, you can become a lead designer. Okay. Now here again, the average salary is 14 lakhs. So it was a jump from 8.5 to 14, and the highest is 50 lakhs per annum. Again, we don't really know the breakup of all this for the 2021 figures, but for the 2022 figures, but for the 2021 figures, you can see that the median was 10 lakhs and then that grew to 14 lakhs, which is very nice. Okay, but again, you can see over here that majority is over here, and I think it's somewhere in from the 20 lakh to 4 lakhs, right? Again, 4 lakhs is very stupid and very slow very low for somebody who has 2 to 5 years of experience. Even 2 years of experience having 3 lakhs is like ridiculously less. right? So majority is in this area. Then we have 5 to 8 years of experience. Now these are in the higher bands. So here you are probably going to be a senior designer, lead product designer, or you're going to be a head of design, right? You're going to be managing and leading teams here. So again, over here, you've got 92 lakhs, which is honestly very crazy. I don't even know who gets 92 lakhs for 8 years of experience. It's ridiculous. And the median is 23. Now, the interesting thing here is that the median is jumping from 14 to 23. But even if you see here, right, somebody who has 5 years of experience and getting 23 lakhs per annum, that's actually very less, to be very honest, right? Somebody with 5 years experience, your minimum should be around 30 in a good product company, right? Of course, I'm talking about good product companies and not the average mediocre ones. Okay. And over here again, 5 years to 10 years, it's jumped from 20 to 23. And here it's jumped from 10 to 20, which is almost double. So that's good. This is the 2021 figures. Again, you can see over here, majority is over here, and a lot of the companies which fall into this category are companies that often are small startups. Okay. Then you have, here I think it changes a little bit, because here it is 5 to 10 years and this is 5 to 8 years, and here you have 8 to 12 years and 10 to 15 years, but it's pretty much the same thing, right? Here it doesn't really matter. And here, last year, they would only get 36 responses, and everybody over here, you could see that somebody who had 10 years of experience was getting 30 lakhs per annum. That is so sad, right? Because today, right, in 2022, with 5 years of experience, you can get 23. But with 10 years of experience, last year, you would have gotten only 30 lakhs per annum. And it's good that the number is growing. And actually, this is actually very surprising if I think about it, because now 8 to 12, it's actually lower than 30. Right, which is kind of very funny. And the highest is 1.5 crores. Again, I have no idea who's getting this much salary. And of course, this is bonus included as well, right? So if you're a person with 8 years of experience and you're earning 24 lakhs per annum salary, you're actually getting less salary. But if you're working in a small company, you're getting good salary. But if you're working in a very big established company, then 24 lakhs is very less. Okay. And then finally, and of course, the roles over here is the lead product designer, staff product designer, head of design, and probably VP and director of design. And then over here, the final set of numbers is for 12 to 15 years. So basically anybody with that much range is 2.46 crore, which is mental and mad. I don't know how this happens. And this is so funny that 10 to 15, there's been no change at all. Oh, 10 to 15 is the same thing. Yeah. Okay, fine. Cool. And then here, today, 12 years of experience, your average is 30, which is again very less, because there are a lot more smaller companies that are there out there. And your role is basically head of design or VP or director of design. You can't be like an average designer with 12 years of experience, right? Anyway, so now that's about that. Now, finally, there's another one. Okay, I did not know this. This is 15 years of experience, 42 lakhs median. 55 lakhs was last year. Has actually been a drop, but this section a bit skewed because you have 12 respondents over here, and here you have 32, so it can skew the graph, but doesn't matter. And here the role is pretty much, you're a director or VP or pretty much high in the leadership. Now, finally coming down to my suggestions. The first important thing is don't go behind money unless you lead a financially hard life. If money is your priority because you're actually having a financially hard life, then pick companies based on the money that you get, right? That's okay. Because right now your priority is not learning skills. Your priority is to get money because you're leading a financially hard life. Number 2, pick people over compensation and benefits. I cannot emphasize this enough. Okay. Now I'm going to give you an example of this over here, right? I'm going to copy this graph, okay? And I'm going to copy this question here as well. The question was, I know a fresher who is getting 15 lakhs per annum. What differentiates this person from the rest? Now, if this person was actually getting 15 lakhs per annum and was working in not a great company, this is going to be that person's career path. Because 15 is actually pretty good, okay? But if it's not a good company and you don't get to work with a good design team and you don't make good decisions fast, right? If you don't switch into a much mature company, then you're going to have this thing. You are never going to become successful financially and in terms of skill set if you don't work at good companies. Okay. The problem is going behind money makes you rich in the short term and makes your career stagnant for 2 to 3 years. And working with talented design teams is the right way. Okay. So what this means is if you're earning 15 lakhs per annum in a good company, then that's amazing. But if you're earning 15 lakhs per annum in a very average small company, which doesn't really have a good design team or probably just has 1 or 2 designers, then you're not going to be able to make a lot of money in the future. Okay. Next is obviously always choose product-based companies instead of agencies and service-based companies. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you don't really have an option, always pick product companies over agencies and service-based companies. If you are not able to get into product companies, it means you need to work on your skills. Okay. And if you are going to work in agencies and service-based companies, please make a jump to a product-based company in 1 to 2 years of your experience, right? Don't stay in agencies and service-based companies for long. It can critically damage your entire career path. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes you can just become lucky. Sometimes you can get mentorship from the right people. Sometimes you can get external help and you will succeed. But generally, working in agencies, service-based companies in India is a little bit detrimental to your career. Now, you might have a happy life, you might have a good work-life balance, but if you're actually looking to make a lot of money, then with this route, you will not make a lot of money. So these were my final suggestions on how you need to navigate the industry. Now, I hope this answered all your questions and now you have a much better clarity. So if you have any questions or requests, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So till then, take care and bye-bye.